Welcome, everybody, back to Above the Fold, a Brafton podcast about content marketing from two dudes in the trenches. One is data-driven, while the other one focuses on soft, creative stuff. Why these points of view? Because any successful content marketing strategy has both. What's up, Francis?
I realized it was a mistake to allow you to kind of say all that because you just slipped in there to the soft, creative stuff as if it's like an afterthought. Like, oh, that stuff. Well, that other stuff on the side. That's what I. Well, that's my corner over there.
You appreciate what I did. I took creative liberty.
Ha 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 ha! Hilarious! How
you doing today? How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing okay. It's a hot day here in Boston. A lot of people have already left the office, so it's a nice, quiet place to record. But otherwise, doing all right.
All right, so you're just basically hanging out for me. I'm actually podcasting from the comfort of a bed right now, and I've got lunch being delivered to me. So, yeah, you're kind of the sucker in this situation.
Yeah, it must be nice, man. Enjoy. I'm glad your office is a bed right now. Good for you.
Yeah, you know, as a matter of fact, earlier this morning, I was blessing the rains down in Africa, getting a little Toto going to start my morning. I don't know if you've ever started a morning with Toto, but I highly recommend it.
I haven't. Was it Toto or was it Weezer's version of Toto? Because they've done that too.
I heard that. You know, I don't want to listen to it. It's kind of like in the same vein as I don't want to see Top Gun 2, just because I am so madly in love with the first version that I just don't envision it getting better, and I feel like there's a risk of damaging the original. So I'm just not going to.
I think that's wise. I think there are certain things that you just need to know exist and you kind of avoid, you know, like a boulder in the stream, whatever it might be. I'm not saying it's bad. You know, Weezer's a fine band. Africa's a great song. I just, I don't know if I need it for the summer of 2018.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one too.
Can't wait to get yelled at by Weezer fans, by the way.
So
Can't wait for that.
Oh yeah, bring it on, crazy Weezer fans.
So before we dig a deeper hole for ourselves, let's jump into this, man. We want to make sure this is a usable and viable podcast. As we did in the first one, we're gonna talk about 3 different topics. 10 minutes, gonna be around 10 minutes for each topic. But as always, the first thing we do is the 20-second download. I say something, the other person, Jeff, this is you, will just kind of download all your thoughts in 20 seconds. I say stop, and then we have our discussion. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
All right, man. Here it comes. What the hell is SEO, and why do I care? Go.
First off, how dare you, sir? Second off, everything that you're creating, your creative, is for me, basically. So you create stuff, but in reality, there's other stuff going on, you know, math and numbers and stuff that you just don't understand. That's basically keeping you in a job.
Done.
You know what?
That was 20 seconds.
I came out
20 seconds. I love how you just came hot right out of the gate. That was beautiful.
I came out with some fire, man. Well,
I
mean, you really kind of primed that one. You baited me with that question. I know you did.
I did bait you. I absolutely baited you. Felt it was appropriate for the 4th of July, but it was great. Loved it. So, but let's dig into this, man, because we talk, you know, there's SEO out there. I'm sure there are people asking this question, even though they may not want to admit it, but they do ask this question. Why should they care about SEO? Let's take the emotion out of it right now. It's not me asking, it's the other people. Why do they care? Why should they care?
All right, so let's run with this for 10 minutes, and I'm just gonna strip this down to the bare fundamentals, and just ask a question back to you. Why write anything at all? So what is the purpose of writing on the internet? Can you answer that question? And then
to inform, to entertain, to provide a seed of communication, online communication, you know, to a discussion, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think that's why you write.
Okay, fair enough. Now, how do you get people to find what you're talking about?
Like me personally, I mean...
Yeah. How would one get... So basically, writing creative content in a vacuum is useless. It's kind of like, if Mozart went and bought a deserted island in the middle of nowhere and produced the most beautiful music in the world, nobody would ever know. So SEO is basically a tool to get your amazing content found. So without SEO, you're just composing art in a vacuum that nobody's ever going to find. I think it's as simple as that.
So in this, I mean, I agree. It makes sense. And then if I am composing or I'm writing something beautiful, it shouldn't just be for me. It should be shared. It should be out there in the world for people to find. I think the question kind of goes back to, like, why is this important? For me not me as a person anymore, me as a business. I'm a small business owner, maybe a medium-sized business owner, and maybe I already have a bill. I'm not Mozart in the desert island. I actually have clients. I got an audience already kind of knows me. Maybe I'm going to use the word of mouth excuse at this point. People know me. I don't need to be online. I don't need, for people to find me, quote unquote, on Google. Why for that person? Why is this important? How do you convince me at that point when I already kind of have the people following me?
It's the easiest way to think about it is to think about your website as think about it as if it were a brick and mortar store, right? So if you've got a brick and mortar store, where are you going to put it? You can put
which are dying, by the way. There are no more brick and mortar stores. Let's tangent for
30 seconds maximum on this one. I believe Amazon is creating brick and mortar food stores where you can just go in, pick up food, like scan a card, and it automatically deducts from your Amazon account, and you can leave. And they're basing it on their entire, like, that whole scaled fulfillment program they got, with basically bots filling orders and all that kind of stuff. So it's a super efficient grocery shopping brick and mortar. So I don't think brick and mortar is, if Amazon is building brick and mortar, I'm buying. They know what they're doing.
That's I mean, I have seen that, and I'm very curious how it feels to walk in, get whatever I want, and then just be able to walk out. Because the worst part of grocery shopping is the line, quite frankly. The line and, like, the aisles where you run into the people in the carts and no one's giving you any type of, like, leeway or room.
Oh God! And then you've just got the barricade of idiots that stand in the middle of the line. Yeah, it's terrible.
Like, what are you doing? It's the worst part. So if that suddenly is now taken out, and I literally go in, get something, and walk out, I'm game. Absolutely. If that's going to be the future of brick and mortar, then let's bring it on, man.
I anticipate it's going to feel like blessing the rains down in Africa. To be honest,
that's the whole time. It's gonna be Toto references the whole time. All right.
It's gonna be. This might stretch into 2 or 3 podcasts. I don't know. Maybe we'll open up with Toto next week. We'll see how it goes.
I don't think they'll allow it, but we could always tweet at them and find out.
All right, you digress, sir. Let's jump back into this. So if you're imagining that your website is a brick and mortar store, let's think about SEO in terms of where you put that store. So if you take a brick and mortar store and you put it on Bob's Road, which is the end of a dirt road up in kind of similar to where I live up in Runner Park, nobody's ever going to find it. That's the equivalent of having a website that's completely hidden and invisible to search. Now, if you take that brick and mortar store and you put it in the most downtown populated area where people are constantly walking by, then you're going to grab people's attention. Just imagine that. Let's translate that over to a website. But imagine that keywords and ranking for keywords that people are interested in and searching are those opportunities, are those inroads to your site, as opposed to not having any, where you've got one road, just like Bob's Road, going to your site. You can imagine that the more inroads that you create and the more people that gravitate around your site and see you more often, you're going to capture a lot of foot traffic. So that's kind of the whole idea of SEO, is to place yourself in a position where you're going to capture as much foot traffic as possible, as opposed to being hidden down on Bob's Road.
So I I know where you're coming from, and I guess, but it goes back to the idea of like that store on Bob's Road is cut off, and I think there's a gray area in the middle where not in downtown, but call it, in the center of a smaller town where there's some foot traffic, not a lot. Maybe there's one billboard, maybe it's put up by tape or nail. It's printed off someone's home printer. Visit our store. We have a 20% off, whatever.
Hopefully not 3 billboards in Ebbing.
But the point is that they have something already. Maybe they're doing okay. They're making enough, to get by. The idea, and I think what I'm getting at, is that with SEO, how do you convince that store to be like, that things could be better? And I think part of the thing is that when you bring in technology or the idea of, all this data, I think that's part of the hump that people have to get across. There is a way for you to still be on Bob's Road, which is probably, just call it around the outskirts of town. Still enough people understand where they are and who know who they are, but there's a way to expand that. And you don't have to move the store. You just got to optimize the website, have a website in the first place, do this and do that. I think that's what I'm getting at. How do you convince that person there is a way to increase?
I think you're starting to get a little bit into brand voice and concerns over, if you put your store in the, like, you're selling out, like Weezer, like if you, and never Toto, by the way. I think you're kind of talking about, like, how do you find that middle ground between not selling out and, making your brand huge in a main road and still, driving additional traffic. I think the answer in this is you don't have to change your brand voice. But what you do have to picture is that, imagine this, you've got a website with one page, and that page ranks for 10 keywords that are relevant to what you do. Okay. So that's a fixed number. That's never going to change. You're never going to gain more keywords. You're never going to lose any more keywords. You've got basically 10 roads that go by your store. Okay. Now, as you continue to create content like blog posts or landing pages, resource centers, whatever, you're going to, for each one of those pages, you're going to rank for additional relevant keywords. So imagine you write 10 blog posts and each one of those ranks for 10 additional keywords. So now you have multiplied the number of roads that go to your site by 10. You went from 10 to 100. So when I have these conversations with people that don't quite understand SEO, they don't understand that multiplication effect. In that if you have one page, you are never going to grow. You're going to have the same keywords that you own forever and ever and ever, and you're not going to drive any additional foot traffic to your site. Now, as you build out your site and you write really good content, you're going to continue to build out more roads for people to find you. And the roads that you build out, you can customize all you want. You can put nice little windmills that go along the road, some nice signage, some mailboxes, a couple shrubberies, maybe, if you're into the whole Monty Python thing. You can do it however you want, but you need to do it because your website is for profit. You're a business and you're here to make money.
It's very visual, the picture you're painting, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I do think that, and you and I have heard the same thing from prospects or even clients. It is that beginning part, as they're building out that website, in the back of their mind, they're thinking, how is this going to help me? I'm not seeing anything move. And we both know it's time. A lot of this, you can't just build a road or build a new, extension to the store and suddenly things change immediately. It's going to take time. And I think because it's technology, it doesn't feel that way. It feels like it should be more immediate.
Agreed.
We do need to move on. We do need to move on to the next thing.
Let's do that. All right. We are at exactly 10 minutes. Let's jump into topic 2, which is coming fast and hard at you. Are you ready?
I am ready. Let's go.
Okay. Now, this is going to be a bit of an explanation to the question, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a preamble here and state that a lot of what we're doing now with technical SEO is just as it's defined, technical. and it can be automated. So a lot of like on-page SEO type of stuff can be automated, and there are tools coming out which eventually will replace a lot of the fundamental stuff that SEO people do. So, question to you, Francis, are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. With machine learning and SEO being automated on the horizon, when will Jeff Baker be homeless? Go.
You know what? Once the robots rise up, once they develop even a smidge of personality, they will already be beyond the Jeff Baker. And Jeff Baker's going to be homeless pretty quick. You're going to be next to a bunch of people in San Francisco with 6-figure salaries because now they're going to be homeless too. You're going to have a community. I'll drop by, give you some spare change every once in a while. Oh, I was just going to get nice. I was going to tell you I was going to give you some spare change. And you wouldn't be alone.
You're quite the philanthropist.
I'm trying to do what I can because at this point, you don't have a job anymore, and I'm trying to help you.
Okay, explain me, paint me a picture of this fictional, or actually, realistic timeline, according to you, in which I am going to be without work, without sustenance, and without shelter. What does this bleak scenario look like, drawn out on a timeline?
So if I could be visual for a quick second, I'm saying all this as I'm looking at your framed photo on my wall, which is making it a little bit even more funny to me as I'm talking about you being on the street.
Explain for our audience why there's a framed photo of me.
There's a framed photo
wall.
on my wall because Jeff was working at our Boston office for a good 6-7 months in 2018. He's now back in California, so I don't get to see him in person every day as I used to. And to facilitate that, he gave me a framed picture of himself making a goofy smile on a bridge in New Hampshire. It's got a black coat on, some jeans, aforementioned goofy smile. That's what I'm staring at.
We can make that available to the audience, and you're welcome. By the way, you're welcome for that.
Back to the issue at hand. So let's first say that, assuming nothing changes in terms of like analysis, in terms of data, there's no other advancements. The only thing that advances is the fact that there's an AI that exists that can literally do what you do. They can analyze something, they can spit something out, they can spit out a report, and they can share this with somebody. In that respect, I mean, there is a timeline. There's an absolute timeline for AI to get there. To be able to kind of analyze a report, to be able to kind of spit out, this is what's going to happen if A and B and C happen, then D and so on. How long that's going to take? Let's be honest, it's going to take a while. I mean, forget about the technology. The trust that has to exist between me, the human, and the AI, the Jeff Baker robot, is going to take some time. Am I going to be able to trust this thing? This thing is not going to give me a framed photo of itself, thus creating trust. I have to trust in the fact that I can look at this, or I can see this AI, and they're going to be able to spit out a report, and I'm going to be able to look at the numbers. So yeah, that makes sense. To be fair, is it actually going to take over your job? Probably not. Let's be honest. I mean, data reports, there's always going to be a human element. There's always going to be something in there that only a human can kind of see. I do think it'll change. I think my job could change with more AI. But I do think it's something we all have to consider. AI is rising up a lot faster than I think a lot of people understand or even realize. Self-driving cars are going to be here soon. Who knows what else? There's going to be a lot more, and we'll have to kind of adjust and react.
I think we're kind of on the same page on this one. I mean, there's already companies that do this. I think one of them, what is it, Search Geeks, something like that. Basically what they do is the technical SEO portion. That's like what SEO companies are basically gouging their customers tens of thousands of dollars a month to do. It's basically just a very, very sharp learning curve that a lot of customers don't want to learn. They don't have the time to do it. Like marketing director, hey, I don't have time to do SEO, and I don't have time to learn it. You hire an SEO agency. And when there's that huge gap between knowing and not knowing, it's kind of like somebody going to a mechanic that doesn't know the trunk from the blinker, so it's like you hand it to them and you're basically just saying, I don't know anything, charge me whatever you want. And that's still what's happening with SEO. However, when you break it down, a lot of what SEO agencies do now is just technical SEO. So basically they're doing keyword research, and most of the time they're doing pretty poor keyword research, in my opinion. And they're going to individual pages and they're updating all of the metadata. So they're changing title tags, changing H1s through H6s, alt text, all that stuff. And it's just, as it sounds, very mechanical and manual process. And I think anything that can be mechanical and automated is going to be. So a lot of the work that they're doing that's super manual, you can start to write codes that do that. And then you can, some of these companies will like test different versions of that metadata hundreds of times and A/B test it to figure out like which versions of the metadata is going to get you the best results in search. So like from an SEO standpoint, from like a simplicity standpoint, there's not much to it. It is not rocket science. Technical SEO has not changed a whole lot. So yeah, I think that is going to be automated, and it probably should. However, Google is moving in a direction that's further and further away from the value of just technical SEO. Like that used to be all Google knew. It was whatever you told it on page is what it was. It's like, okay, the title of this page is this, Google. The meta description of this page is this, Google. And they said, okay, thank you for the blueprints. Now we know how to rank your page appropriately. It's gone far beyond that. We've talked about that with content depth and how it is able to read in between the lines, and it can understand the meaning of the content and how well you're writing the content. So it's getting to a point now where technical SEO is kind of taking a back seat, and it's taking a back seat to more quality content and how well that content is written. So I think SEOs are going to have to, if you only specialize in doing that manual stuff, you're in the same boat as truck drivers that are going to they're going to be, their job's going to be automated by trucks that can drive themselves, because it's a mindless, sorry, truck driver, that sounds kind of messed up, but it's a mindless manual process. And you're going to have to evolve. So what does that mean for me? Yeah, I'm going to have to evolve too. I'm going to have to learn how to use this data to get one step ahead of everybody else.
I think you're going to have to learn how to, interact with the new AI. I mean, you mentioned it just now, but the A/B testing, I do think that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be about, it's going to go beyond the reporting. It's going to go into a place where you can test something well ahead of time. This is going to happen, and maybe even the time of year, we're going to post here, and what is it going to look like? What could it look like? And you'll have a bunch of different variations of it and be able to tweak on the fly. I imagine you're in a room, headset, you're talking to a computer's giving you a bunch of different screens. I got Minority Report in my mind right now, and I think that's,
as you should.
That would be cool, right? I think that's what's part of it. But who knows? I mean, you mentioned already that Google has, and you're right, gone from technical to kind of the quality of writing and so forth. I mean, I think that's why this marriage of data and creativity exists, and why it has to. One can't exist without the other. There's elements of each in every single thing. But what does it mean? As Google gets closer into this idea of, how the quality of this piece, how well was it researched? How well is this? Is this answering the question? That's getting thrown out there. I think there's a lot of various questions that pop up when you think about AI and this and marketing and how it interacts with each other.
There is room for SEOs, and the last thought on this is it's kind of like as if Google is turning us, as if to say, "Hurry, boy, it's waiting there for you." You get it?
I do. Right. It's very funny. Very funny.
All right. We're time's up on that one. Let's jump into the last question here. Are you hit me with a question this time.
I'm hitting you with a question, and it's appropriate, timely question, given the fact that today, right now, is July 3rd. Tomorrow is the 4th of July. On a Wednesday, no less. Thanks, calendar. It's a very weird week to be working on Tuesday, knowing that tomorrow is a holiday, and we're all back on Thursday, assuming no one else took vacation. Anyway, I digress yet again. Jeff Baker, here's your question.
Hold on. Can we just state once and for all, certain holidays should not be floaters? Like they should. I
agree. Seriously, it's Wednesday. Permanently
Why? Be on a Saturday. Wednesday, I would argue, is the worst day of the week to have a holiday. There's no buffer.
I am not going to enjoy the 4th of July this year. I'm going to wake up. I'm just going to think it's Wednesday, man. I got to go to work on Thursday. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do today.
You get an early release the day before the holiday, and then you're supposed to start normal time the day after you were drinking on the holiday. So instead of an early release, I would argue that you should get a late start on the day after a holiday, or just the day off.
I mean, let's just be... we're going to go down this other rabbit hole, but I mean, people start when they start, man. I mean, everyone can start online, at home. A late start is kind of a given already. You know, no one's punching a time clock in here. I think that's already something that's happening. But regardless, this Wednesday holiday thing, disapprove. Dislike times 10.
0 out of 10 would recommend.
Yeah. With that, with content marketing, Jeff Baker, how do you handle holidays with content marketing? Go.
I publish my worst content. So you can't. All right. So here's the thing. You cannot release a major ebook right before the 4th of July or Christmas or any other time for that matter, because nobody's going to see it. But at the same time, you can't publish nothing. You are a company. You have to show that you have a heartbeat and a soul. So you have to say Happy Holidays to everybody. You're just not going to publish something.
Done.
Yeah. Okay.
That was perfect. Happy Holidays, everybody. That was perfect time to end that answer. But to be honest, though, I think everyone's up against this. You know, you have the holiday. It is in the middle of the week or whatever. It's just a holiday that shows up. You know, in the world of making sure your audience is engaged, how do you approach this? How do you handle a day when you, quite frankly, most of the people who are going to be typically online are not?
All right, so here's the thing. You really have to plan around it. And I work with my colleague Lauren Fox out of Seattle, and we plan this out like a month in advance. We know exactly when we're going to launch anything big, like an ebook or some big white paper, and we plan around exactly when. For example, we usually launch ebooks on Wednesdays, and 4th of July, like we just mentioned, lands smack dab on a Wednesday, doing us all kinds of damage for that week in terms of inbound and driving awareness to our brand. So on those particular weeks, we're not going to waste all the resources into a huge asset like that. We won't do it. We'll either launch it the week before or the week after, or we'll just do something topically relevant to that particular holiday at that time. So it'll just be like something top campaigns that B2B businesses, examples that they've posted on 4th of July, something like that. Because that's another part of it. Nobody really wants to talk about something super, super in-depth content marketing when basically they just want to stuff a bunch of ballpark francs in their face and blow stuff up, right? Like it's not something that people want to get into. So I think it's just a matter of reading your audience and it's not assuming that they're super interested in your in-depth report at the time. So just don't be selfish, Francis.
Now I'm hungry for hot dogs. That you just mentioned hot dogs. So the holiday can't come fast enough. But I agree. I do wonder if you have a strong audience, if you have a connection with your audience, there has to be an argument to be made that a small touch, and a recognition of the holiday, maybe even a joke, something like that. I mean, just going back to the idea of audience engagement, I think that's what I'm going for, because you can't be completely blank on this holiday either. You know, you can't not recognize its existence. Because just about every, you know, you're going to see a bunch of graphics or GIFs or whatever it may be. Happy 4th, whatever. I have to imagine that if the audience poll that you have is strong enough, you're allowed as a company to kind of get away with some levity, you know, for a holiday post or some sort of holiday engagement.
Yeah, and as you should. I mean, you should, like you said, unless you are still bitter about the Revolutionary War and you don't want to recognize the sovereignty of our nation. And yeah, just go ahead and you know, don't post anything and pretend it's another day of the week. But yeah, you need to show, and I think that's part of the problem with a lot of B2B companies. They don't realize that they can have a little bit of creative liberty with their voice. Like they don't realize that they don't have to look and sound like a super rigid business that only thinks about you know, being uber uptight professional, tie wearing uptight types of you know, cold institutions, rather than, you know, being people and acting like people. And that's kind of, that just goes back to an overall strategy with content marketing. You ought to have some sort of voice, and you should push the edge a little bit, and don't be boring, because so much of that stuff out there is boring. You know, so yeah, make a stupid holiday GIF, or, you know, send out a newsletter where you know, you're showing a whole bunch of your employees doing something goofy, singing Africa by Toto or something.
You really want to sing Africa. You are desperate to sing that song.
I just can't get this out of my head. I really do. You know, I got some stuff that I have to do after this podcast. I'm just gonna put that sucker on loop.
On repeat? That's all you're gonna do? I can't wait for the voicemail. In fact, when you call me later, I won't pick up just so I can hear you sing Africa, and then I'll record it. That's what I'll do.
Well, by that point, I'll be on take 437 and beer 6, so it's going to be pretty entertaining. Keep your ears peeled for that.
One last thing though with that, like I think you bring up a really good point about voice, and this is not something we should dive into now, but that's one of the hardest things, because it's so weird when you talk about you need a strategy, you need to be able to figure out your voice and you know, even talking to your employees. It is so hard. You know, you have to kind of know yourself as a business. Even the idea of having a strategy and then wrapping up a personality into that in a weird way to kind of bring it back to AI is kind of what we're talking about. Like, imagine if an AI had personality. You, Jeff Baker, homeless. The strategy for a business where part of it is voice, I think, is an interesting element here, because it's not something you can plan. It's something you kind of have to figure it out, and there's got to be someone at that place, at that piece of business, at that business, that leads it, or at least encompasses it somehow. Again, we really shouldn't get into it now, but it's interesting that it brings all that up.
First off, you have an unusual fixation with me being homeless. I don't know, where your head's been going in the afternoon. Like, you
left me, man. All right, let's go back to the framed photo. I don't have you anymore. Part of this is bitterness.
That's why I left you a framed photo. I should have, you know what? I should have made it like one of those greeting cards that open up and sing to you.
That would have been nice.
Nice. Maybe
I just have this wooden frame photo staring back at me at the wall.
Yeah, maybe next time I'll install like a little push button there, and I'll just have like a 30-second recording of me singing "Playing with the Boys" or "Highway to the Danger Zone"
Africa.
from Top Gun.
Let's just bring it all the way back to when you leave me the voicemail, that's what I'll hook it up to. Frame photo.
Yeah, you got it, buddy. So all right, so closing thoughts on this content on holidays. Have a brand voice, right? Don't publish your most expensive time, resource of assets, and just kind of use it as an opportunity to let your brand voice shine, make a joke, have some fun with it, and show that you've got a beating heart. That's my thought.
Oh.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody, for Above the Fold 2. more to come. In the meantime, you guys can find you can find Brafton, www.brafton.com. You can find Francis, McFancy, MCFANCY, on his Twitter handle. And mine is Baker_rhythms, spelled wrong. RITHMS. It's my Twitter handle.
All right. Always a pleasure.
See you later, Francis. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.